By the turn of the 19th century, China was under the rule of the Great Qing, an ethnic Manchu dynasty who reigned over a vast and culturally rich empire, boasting advancements in art, science, and technology. Despite occasional internal strife, the Qing maintained a rigid social hierarchy and bureaucratic structure, deeply rooted in Confucian ideals, which guided everything from imperial decrees to daily life. This period was also characterized by a self-sufficient economy, with agricultural productivity and traditional crafts underpinning local and national prosperity. Exports in tea, silk, and porcelain flourished, although it was tightly controlled by the state. Internationally, China viewed itself as culturally superior and largely self-reliant, requiring little from the outside world, though that didn't mean they were insular. Since the 17th century, the Qing had made efforts to exert their influence across Central Asia, Coastal Asia, and Russia, ensuring their dominance over the Far Eastern world. However, beneath its strong facade, the Qing dynasty struggled with governance challenges, widespread corruption, and bureaucratic inefficiency. Rising social unrest due to population growth, inefficient food supply, and tax issues, along with a reluctance to modernize and an underestimation of Western technology, left China ill-prepared for the challenges it would soon face with the arrival of European powers and their imperialistic ambitions. The first of these challenges came with the trade of opium, a narcotic substance derived from the opium poppy. Historically, the trade of opium in China had existed as early as the Tang dynasty, and by 1589 had become a taxable commodity. Before the 17th century, opium was mainly medicinal, treating a variety of issues from virility to bowel problems. But the practice of smoking the drug was soon introduced from Southeast Asia. This practice intensified when a method to smoke pure opium was discovered in the 18th century, leading many users to pursue the drug for recreation. Opium could relieve both physical and emotional stress, reducing the strain of labor and everyday living. Like most recreational drugs, however, there's a catch. Opium was extremely addictive, and any attempts at withdrawal often led to severe cramps, muscle twitching, chills, and nausea. By 1729, over 200 chests of opium were being imported into China every year, with each chest containing roughly 140 pounds of opium. However, its rising popularity caused imports to swell rapidly. Widespread addiction plagued various social classes, including government and imperial court officials. In response, the Chinese government banned opium importation and production in 1800, then criminalized its use in 1813, imposing harsh penalties. Despite these measures, British traders evaded restrictions by selling to local smugglers off the coast of Guangdong. This meant the import quantities continued to rise. In 1838 alone, over 40,000 chests of opium found its way into China. The opium trade's immense profitability attracted criminal groups who undermined law enforcement with bribery and corruption, thwarting the Qing government's efforts to control the trade. In 1839, Lin Zexu was appointed as imperial commissioner to tackle the growing crisis. His firm stance, including blockading British traders in Canton and destroying over 20,000 chests of opium, directly challenged British economic interests. Before we continue, I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's video, Storyblocks, a stock media subscription service with a vast library of stock videos, images, audio, and sound effects. While the content we create is primarily hand-animated, not all creators have the skills or time needed to create their own video assets or the funding to afford freelancers to do all the jobs for them. That's where Storyblocks comes into play. Storyblocks' curated stock library has everything you need to create high-quality videos in one place. With over 1 million 4K or HD footage, templates, music, sound effects, images, and more. Save time and money, and take your videos to the next level using thousands of pre-made professional video templates with your favorite editing program, including After Effects, Premiere Pro, Apple Motion, and DaVinci Resolve. While stock footage is less useful for our animated content, Storyblocks does offer a vast library of really useful audio files, and I was really impressed with the extensive collection of sound effects and music that were available for us. And anything you download with Storyblocks is 100% royalty-free, meaning you don't need to worry about copyright strikes, licensing fees, or other legal rights. To support our channel and get started with unlimited stock media downloads all at one set price, head to storyblocks.com/armchairhistorian or click the link in the description below. Unperturbed, the British responded to Commissioner Lin's actions with military force. British naval power, equipped with advanced steam-powered gunboats and modern artillery, proved overwhelming against the outdated Qing military. Key battles, including the capture of Canton and the Yangtze River campaigns, led to a series of British victories. The war concluded with the Treaty of Nanking in 1842, which imposed harsh conditions on China, including ceding Hong Kong to Britain, opening several ports to British traders, and establishing extraterritorial rights for foreigners in China. The Treaty of Nanking became the first of the unequal treaties that eroded China's sovereignty through one-sided concessions. The next of these treaties came just 2 years later in 1844, when the Qing dynasty and Kingdom of France signed the Treaty of Whampoa. This effectively granted France the same privileges as Britain under the Treaty of Nanking, and more importantly, secured the legalization to practice Christianity in 1846. However, despite such concessions, the Qing's position on the opium trade was set firmly against both French and British interests. The years following the First Opium War saw tensions simmer as Britain, France, and other foreign powers pressed their influence against the resistant Qing dynasty. This resistance often came in the form of repressing Western subjects engaged in the trade of opium. In 1847, the British launched the Expedition to Canton in response to such repression against British traders, forcefully taking the strategic Boca Tigris forts and signaling their readiness to challenge Chinese sovereignty. The 1850s, an era of aggressive Western imperialism, brought these brewing conflicts to head. Britain, citing the most favored nation status, sought to renegotiate the Treaty of Nanking with ambitions to fully open China to British merchants, legalize opium, exempt imports from taxes, and establish an ambassador in the capital of Peking. The French and Americans, with their respective treaties, eyed similar expansions of influence and trade rights. Ultimately, the flashpoint came with the Arrow incident, the seizure of a Chinese ship with expired British registration by Qing authorities, and the subsequent desecration of the British flag provided the casus belli Britain sought. Harry Parkes, the British consul, demanded the release of the crew and an official apology, which the Qing resisted. This diplomatic impasse would soon escalate into the Second Opium War. Using the Arrow incident, Britain and France launched strategic offensives, demonstrating their military superiority at Canton and the Dagu forts. This led to the Qing signing the treaties of Tientsin and Aigon in 1858. However, the war persisted despite the Qing signing treaties, as they were not ratified until 1860, when the Xiangfeng Emperor fled Peking. Fighting raged on until Western forces occupied Peking and destroyed the Old Summer Palace, forcing the emperor's brother, Prince Guang, to oversee the Qing's official capitulation. The Convention of Peking in 1860 ended the Second Opium War, but its stipulations were harsh, eroding China's sovereignty, ceding territory to Russia, opening more ports to foreign powers, and legalizing the opium trade, stripping the Qing of control over its importation and manufacture. Amid the turmoil of the Opium Wars, the Qing dynasty faced the dual threats of external aggression and internal revolt. The empire, already reeling from the opium crisis and the encroachment of Western powers, confronted a new level of domestic instability with the White Lotus and 8 Trigrams uprising. These conflicts drained imperial resources, setting the stage for the monumental Taiping Rebellion in 1850, which saw 20,000 rebels mobilized throughout south-central China. These rebels consisted primarily of ethnic Hakka peoples, who were left disenfranchised by the ruling Manchu. At the head of this movement was Hang Xiaotuan, a charismatic revolutionary whose religious ideals rallied together the disparate Hakka people. Hang's radical vision for social and political reform helped the rebellion inflict unprecedented destruction across China, exacerbating the woes of a dynasty under siege. The Taiping Rebellion, unfolding against the backdrop of foreign intervention, sought to upend the Qing status quo. At its heart in Nanking, the Taiping government challenged entrenched norms, advocating for land redistribution and gender equality. The radical ideologies and aggressive military strategies of the Taiping not only targeted the Qing dynasty's power, but also led to widespread destruction and suffering. As rebels pursued Hang's call for blood, prolonged conflicts resulted in staggering casualties. Estimates suggest that between 20 to 30 million people lost their lives, making it one of the deadliest conflicts in all human history. Despite the Taiping's initial military triumphs, their challenge to Qing rule was met with brutal force, compounded by support from Western powers for the Qing and internal strife within Taiping ranks. Thanks to Hang's increasingly erratic behavior, local Chinese elites in central China were able to rally their own forces and destroy the rebels in 1864, putting an end to the movement once and for all. The years following the Taiping Rebellion saw Qing rulers endure a slew of embarrassing setbacks. The Sino-French War of 1884 to 1885 saw China clash with French forces for control over Indochina, but French victory forced the Qing to cede the territories of Annam and Tonkin. Concurrently, the Pavlov Agreement of 1885 with Russia had China concede the strategically important Li region. The later British expedition to Sikkim in 1888 also diminished imperial sway in the Himalayas. Japan's growing prominence in East Asia was then marked by the First Sino-Japanese War of 1894 to 1895, which saw the Qing lose Taiwan and concede Japanese influence over Korea. In the wake of these successive territorial losses and diplomatic setbacks, the Qing dynasty faced heightened vulnerability and diminishing control. This period of escalating external pressures led many peasants and workers to become disillusioned with foreign encroachment and Christian influence. These grievances were championed by a secret society of nationalists known as the Righteous and Harmonious Fists. Westerners quickly came to refer to their followers as Boxers due to their prowess in martial arts. By 1899, the Boxers had instigated a nationalist uprising targeting foreign nationals and Chinese converts to Christianity. The rebellion started in Shandong province and quickly engulfed the areas around Peking by 1900. This provoked a response from foreign powers in China who formed an 8-nation alliance to deal with the Boxers. The Allied forces consisted of nearly 55,000 troops, with Japan, Russia, and Britain providing the majority of soldiers to the war effort. The Qing dynasty, initially caught between suppressing the Boxer uprising and maintaining diplomatic relations with foreign powers, found itself in a precarious position. Initially, the Qing government, under Empress Dowager Cixi, cooperated with the 8-nation alliance, recognizing the potential threat the Boxers posed to both foreign nationals and their own tenuous hold on power. This cooperation, however, was short-lived and fraught with internal conflict. As the rebellion gained momentum and popular support, Empress Dowager Cixi, sensing a shift in public sentiment, decided to back the Boxers. This dramatic decision was influenced by several factors, including the growing anti-foreign and anti-Christian sentiment among the populace, the Boxers' portrayal as defenders of Chinese sovereignty, and the Qing court's own disillusionment with the ineffectiveness of foreign alliances and treaties. In a strategic move to align with nationalist fervor, in June 1900, Cixi declared war on the foreign powers, effectively siding with the Boxers. This decision aimed to leverage the uprising to consolidate the Qing's weakening authority and expel foreign influence, but it ultimately plunged China into a deeper conflict. During the Battle of Tientsin in July 1900, the Western forces launched a significant offensive to capture the strategic city. Their success provided a key gateway to Peking, leading Allied forces to relieve the Boxers' siege of the international legations on August 14th. These actions prompted Cixi and much of the Qing court to flee to Xi'an. By the afternoon, the Allied forces had effectively crushed the Boxer forces, leading to the city's occupation by foreign troops. These victories compelled the Qing government to negotiate, leading to the signing of the Boxer Protocol in September 1901, signaling the end of the rebellion as well as imposing harsh penalties on China. Key stipulations including building memorials for Western victims, suspending civil exams in violence-stricken areas, and a 2-year arms import ban. They also had to allow permanent foreign military presence in Peking and transform the Zhongli Yamen building into a Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Financially, they were burdened with a colossal indemnity of 450 million taels, equivalent to $333 million at the time. This cost was over twice their annual revenue, made worse by added interest, which left China paying off the last installment of this debt in 1940. The Boxer Protocol's signing in September 1901 marked a pivotal moment in the Qing dynasty's decline. Empress Dowager Cixi, who had fled to Xi'an during the Allied forces' capture of Peking, eventually returned to the capital, facing a dramatically altered political landscape. The Qing dynasty, now severely weakened and internationally isolated, confronted mounting pressures for reform and modernization. This period saw numerous attempts at internal restructuring, including the New Policies, or Late Qing reforms, which aimed to modernize the military, economy, and educational system. However, these efforts were too little, too late, to salvage the crumbling dynasty. The final blow came with the Wuchang Uprising in October 1911, a revolt that quickly escalated into the Xinhai Revolution. This widespread rebellion, driven by a coalition of revolutionary groups and disaffected provinces, signaled the end of imperial rule. In February 1912, the last emperor, Puyi, abdicated, marking the fall of the Qing dynasty and the establishment of the Republic of China. This profound transformation ended over 2,000 years of imperial rule and ushered in an era of republicanism, albeit one fraught with its own challenges and instabilities.